Good afternoon and good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Vox session number 3. And today it gives me great pleasure to welcome an alumnus by the name of Mr. Calum Ferreira.
Hello, everyone.
Callum was the piano player for the band for a long time, and we have got some wonderful memories of what Callum's done. And the purpose of these talks is to try and help mums and dads who are interested in trying to work out why music's such an important part of their education. It's not necessarily about we want everybody to go and be a musician. What we really want them to do is to enjoy the journey, and if they get to use music in some fashion at the end of the day, whether it's through acoustics or vibration or physics and music psychology, we just want them to be really super happy. So we've got two amazing people. The first one's Calum, and then the Vox 4 is going to be featuring Mr. Tom Walsh. Like normal, please don't jump in and contribute verbally during the sessions, but if you get a chance to have a really good question, please do put that in the chat box at the bottom, and Stu's going to be monitoring the chat box for any really good questions, and we'll throw those across to Calum and Tom later on today. And I'm going to make a start then. So I've bigged up Calum and the legend that he is. He's calling in from Wolverhampton. So thanks very much for making it here today, Calum.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And we caught up a couple of months ago down at the, where was it? The Royal Academy or the Art?
It was the National Museum, I think.
That's it. And you were there as one of our guests as the Marketing Derby activity where we were performing down there, and it was really nice to hang together. And Calum said that he wouldn't mind speaking to the students, so I thought it'd be really good if Calum would just take us through a bit of your education, a bit of your career, a few highlights, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So I work as an acoustician at a company called Arup, who are an engineering and design firm. They're based in London, so I do live in London, and have been there for the past 5 years. And the work that we do at Arup is anything that involves acoustics with buildings or with infrastructural environmental projects. So in my day-to-day work, it can take me from designing a concert hall or an orchestral studio to reducing noise from high-speed trains. So it is a very varied job.
And how did you get there, Calum? So that's where you've ended up changing the world with acoustics. I know you've been to Singapore and England, and you're doing the new HS2 acoustics and things in Maida Vale. What was your journey from sort of band to where you are now?
Yeah, it was quite a long journey to get there. I think when I was at school, I did a mixture of music tech, but then with maths and physics as well at A levels, and I really thought that I was going to go to a music college or go to a university and do music production or music tech in some kind of way. And with that idea, I did a national tour of loads of unis and conservatoires, but none of them, something wasn't quite right with them, and I didn't feel my place in a lot of those places, and the courses didn't stick with me as well. But at the last minute, I found acoustics. So I'd heard the word but didn't know much about it. And the University of Southampton offered an acoustical engineering course, and they asked for A levels in maths physics, which was what I was studying. And then it was quite nice to have a music tech and music background with there as well. And then outside of school, as a few people that knew me from the band knew that I was quite into bringing weird keyboards and bringing a bit of a weird sound to the band. So I was always interested from a young age in electronics and how that brings it in with music.
That's fantastic. So you went to Southampton to do what, a master's, was it, or just a regular?
Yeah, it was a master's, in acoustics engineering. You could do a 3-year course. So after 3 years, I could have finished and done a bachelor's, but I ended up doing the 4-year master's course.
And the Southampton was a good city for you. There was a lot of music going on, a lot of life.
Music there, I didn't click with it as much as I would have liked to have. But with the people on the course, all had a kind of music background in some way. All really varied group of people. So we did do some forms of music there, and but not as much as I thought we were going to do. But the interesting thing with Southampton was that there was a lot of people from London or the surrounding areas, and I really felt a connection to London. So after a couple of years of being in Southampton, I was going up to London quite a lot to do music gigs or whatever.
So when you were at Southampton, the what sort of project? I mean, what sort of course is the one that you were doing? You know, for guys who are thinking, you know, I don't know what acoustics is either. And you're thinking, oh, I want to do something with music and science, physics, maybe. What is acoustics as a course?
It's anything that involves the study of sound and how either that sound responds to yourself or responds to in a building or out in a built environment. So some of the modules that we did in the course were vibration. So it could be vibration in buildings or vibration in cars or trains. We also did architectural acoustics. So that's the response of sound within a building. We also did more traditional modules like really hardcore maths and signal processing. We also did electronics as well. So there's a few people from our course that went on to work for companies who design speakers or headphones or consumer-based products. But the architectural acoustics was the thing that really grabbed me.
Kind of spaces and the way sound works in spaces.
Could you just repeat that? The connection.
I was just saying the way that sound works in different spaces is what really, you know, gets you. You're interested in the physics of rooms and architectural acoustics.
Yeah, it's it all started, I think, going to the Symphony Hall in Birmingham. When I was very little, you could walk through the building that it was in, and there was a little door where you could peer your head into the Symphony Hall, even when there was no concerts going on. And people would say, "Oh, this room has great acoustics," and they would just say that word, and that word grabbed me, even though I had no idea what it meant. I was always trying to look to see what that word meant and what creates a great acoustic in a room. Interestingly, I now work with the person that helped design that room, so it's all gone full circle, which is but that really was the start of just hearing that that word acoustics and seeing it tied to a room that I walk past a lot. And then going to I'll go to a lot of live music gigs, and by going to a lot you can hear how different rooms respond to different types of music. It's not just something that you quantify, it's also an emotional response to it as well. So how you perceive is a good acoustic could be different to anyone on this call.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, when we're talking about our kids who are going through our programs now, we're really interested in them. I hope you can hear me okay. I know we've got some IT problems, but we're really interested in trying to open doors for them and get them used to networking, being able to communicate with different people. How did it go from finishing uni to getting your place at Arup? You know, was it an easy thing? Did the uni do that for you, or was
the uni were really really good at promoting students to do summer placements? And between my second and third year and my third and fourth year, I did a summer placement at Arup. So I think I did a phone interview for them. And then after having quite a good summer with them, they said, "Oh, you can come back next year." And then after that, they said, "Oh, you can come back as a graduate." So it all started from that phone interview for a summer placement, and then that led me to starting there as a graduate. But that all started from the university holding career sessions and working on your CV, doing interview skills, and that was something that I really wanted to do, because at a point at uni it got a little bit too academic for me, especially in my fourth year. So I was really interested in trying to find a job out of it and trying to find a career that I could link both my studies and kind of a real life experience to it as well.
That's cool, man. And also, you know, now that you're at Arup, we've had a really nice question from Andrew Deaton. Andrew is a really good friend of the organisation, and he does a lot of coaching for a lot of our young people. He's interested in knowing, what's been the highlight of your time at Arup? Was it Maida Vale? Was it, going to Singapore? What was the one thing that stood out?
One thing was a couple of years ago, I was working on a project where it was a theatre and a commercial building on top of Tottenham Court Road station in central London. And Tottenham Court Road is going to be one of the big hubs of Crossrail. So there's going to be a new station, a new tunnel for the underground, but also they're building a commercial shopping unit and a theatre on top of it. So you've got all kinds of acoustic problems there. You've got vibrations from the trains. You don't want to hear a train rumbling past in the middle of a theatre performance. You've got the acoustics of the theatre as well. So can you understand what each of the actors are saying? And then also it's a noise from the commercial unit as well. If you've got a busy shopping centre, you don't want that breaking into the theatre. And a big part of the work that we do at Arup is doing sound demonstrations. So instead of describing a lot of acoustic jargon and saying this is X dB or it's going to sound like this, we do demonstrations where we can just bring clients in and get them to listen to what we predict. And for that project, it was one of the first demonstrations that I built and helped present it as well. And we brought in quite a high theatre figure who was going to be the owner of the theatre, and we were all really nervous beforehand because we just didn't know what questions she was going to ask. She was going to keep us on our toes for a lot of it, and she loved what she heard and all embraced us afterwards. So it was a real key moment in seeing everything put together and then delivering to the client was a really good feeling.
That's amazing. And when you said you got nervous and you felt the nerves going, it's amazing for us to hear that even, as you go in life and you get older and more mature, that you still have to deal with those kind of those situations where you're a bit anxious and a bit nervous. And I know some of our kids will be feeling that, when they're going through their A-levels. Are there any sort of life lessons or tips that you've got, things that you've learned along the way, which, you use now to help balance those kind of emotions?
Yeah, I think one lesson is trying not to get focused too much into one lane. To always kind of be adaptive, have a few skills that you can move around. Because it's very easy to become an expert in something, but that can weigh you down. So even from, I did a mixture of A-levels, which at the time didn't seem to link to each other, but then that all led to me studying acoustics. And then even with the work that I do quite a lot of work with acoustics inside buildings for studios and for concert halls. But say if there was a lack of funding in the arts and culture world, I wouldn't have a job to do. So I also then work on a lot of the rail infrastructure projects as well. So we're always adaptive. So yeah, that's one key lesson. And another lesson is to have a network of diverse people. Know people who are different demographic to you, or difference in education, difference in skills. It just means that you've got a really varied network to pull different ideas from. And it means that you're not talking to an echo chamber of the same people around.
That's so true, man. And, rather a topical thing, you were saying that, the arts might not be getting so much funding now. And, also the theatres are closed for who knows. Do you get many daily sort of briefings from Arup? Are they good at communicating what's happening for you?
Yeah, we do get weekly updates. And yeah, because of what's happening, there's a question over funding of certain projects. Some projects have stopped because of what's happening. So yeah, they are good at giving us a weekly update. Sometimes for junior staff, they might feel that they could be in the know a little bit more, but that's because no one really knows what's happening each day. So it's as good as what it can be.
Just thinking about the acoustics, and you were talking about the room and the acoustics. Now that there's going to be fewer people in rooms, does that make a big difference to some of the large-scale architectural things you're doing?
Yeah, I mean even just from acoustics perspective, having a concert hall with half the number of people in means that you get a much more of a liver room. So humans are very good absorbers. So a group of 100 people sat on a chair are very good at absorbing sound. So in the acoustics way, it means that you've got an issue there, and that you've designed a room that is to fit a certain number of people and you won't have them in there. But then another thing is with the funding. So with a lot of these concert halls, they're built with fundraisers, and also with money that will give back to the community. But if the community aren't going there, then it means that there's an issue with how the funding is going to be brought for a lot of these projects.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Crazy times. Then just a reminder to everybody that if you want to write a question in there for Calum or Calum's career or anything along those lines, you can put that in there, and Stu's going to have a look at a couple of questions in a second. In fact, we come to one of my favourite bits, because we get to look back on maybe some favourite memories from our time together, with myself and yourself and Stu. For me, I loved it when we went on tour to New York, and I really see our touring program as integral to try and help, students understand about life lessons, life skills, how to manage their eating, how to manage getting out on time. We love that part of what we do, and it's a real shame that we're not doing it this summer. But, one of my favorite memories were when we were in New York. We took your keyboard through the airplane, and we had your music stand gaffer taped to the outside of the music bag, and the customs were thinking it was a weapon of mass destruction, and we were really struggling to get through. Have you got anything, I'm going to get Stu to jump in this in a minute as well, but have you got anything fun that you'd like to, that you can bring to the table? That's clean, obviously.
Yeah. The one that I remember, I'll never forget, is having I think was the first session that I had with the band, or at least the first session where I'd met most people, and it was a summer school. So I wasn't fully part of the band yet, but I joined for a 3-day summer school. So it was an hour drive from Wolverhampton in this new place, Derby, that I'd never been to.
Yeah.
I suddenly found out that I had an accent, because Stuart was constantly telling me that I had some kind of strange accent. And I turned up with my keyboard. And I just remember being amazed at the amount of talent that was in there. Because at the school that I was at, there were a few people that were big musicians, but there wasn't a large pool. So turning up to this summer school with a whole group of people part of the band who were all really talented, that amazed me. And then the first solo that I did a few of my weird sounds with the keyboard, and everyone in the band just turned and looked at me like, what is he doing? I think that shocked them quite a bit. But that really cemented my place in the band, and I was going back every week since that first summer school.
Yeah, and Stu, have you got any nice memories?
Yeah, Calum talking about doing his weird sounds on the keyboard. I distinctly remember him playing. He used to have a real talent. So if you press like the percussion button on a keyboard, he brings up all the drums sounds. And I distinctly remember Calum having a real talent of playing different drum beats on this keyboard. And he played the whole of, we've got a tune called The Look of Love. And I remember Calum playing the whole of Look of Love drum part on his keyboard for a gig, and doing the most insane drum fills I've ever heard in my life. It was pretty special. So.
It was really nice, and all of this helps lead us towards what you've done now. We really care about what our kids might get out of. We don't know where they might end up in life, and if there's anybody out there who's listening who really is interested in acoustics and maybe physics and music together, I'm sure Calum wouldn't mind if they reached out and asked you the odd question. Would that be okay with you, mate?
That's great. Yeah, it does. It is a bit of a world that is hard to figure out, and I didn't know it was there until the last minute. But but there are a lot of options there. It's not just Southampton that offers acoustics. There are a lot of schools that do it, and even in my team, not everyone has come from the same university. We all have different backgrounds. So yeah, happy to help out. Happy to answer any questions.
Oh, that would be fantastic. And we've just got a nice little question from Neil now. And this is, I think, Neil is one of our directors down in Swansea. And he works in a lot of spaces that are used by different people. So I think he's probably trying to pick your brain to see what best to do. But you can imagine we've got a multifunctional space. And we've got, sometimes it's being used as a classroom. Sometimes it's being used as a mother and baby toddler group. Sometimes it's being used as a concert. How do we easily balance the acoustic requirements for a space when you're thinking about setting one up? If somebody says to you, right, we want you to build and we want to sort out the acoustics, what do you take into account?
Yeah, I think, traditionally, we would press the client and say, do you really want all those options? Like, what is the one that you really want? And that's trying to make our lives easier. Because it might be that you design a room to all these spaces, but they only program lectures 6 times a week. So that would be the first point, is to press the client on what they really want. And then if they do say that they want a multifunctioning space, we could bring in elements into the room that either decrease or increase the volume of the room. So there's an example of a concert hall we did a few years ago in northern Norway, called the Stormen Concert Hall, and it operates as a small room for small sized orchestras, and then it can open the volume to a much bigger orchestra, and that's done by motorized panels that come in and then close off the upper volume of the room. I mean, a really expensive job to do, but it's something that they do on a daily basis. They change the width and the volume of the room to accommodate the amount of musicians in there.
That's amazing. I think I need one of those over at our next rehearsal. I'll have a word with Stu and see if we can get something sorted. Just to finish off though, Callum, where do you see the future taking you? I mean, because you're doing great things at the moment. You're doing some really interesting projects. If you had to say the next 5 or 10 years, what sort of thing are you hoping to get out of it?
I think I want to take on more work slightly outside of traditional acoustics and bringing more what we call experience-led design. So using new technologies to be able to use a new technology as part of the design process. So that's either from using something that we have called the Sound Lab, where we play an auralization or a recording of what we predict what the room might be, or bringing VR or immersive visuals into that as well. So something that we're looking at quite a lot is how can we help the design process by bringing people into a prediction of the space, and with new buildings that might be designed for things like esports or a more immersive theatre. That could be something that gets like really big in the next 5-10 years.
Yeah, and you think you'll stay with Arup for a few more years? They're a good company.
They are a good company, yeah. I think I could see myself being there.
Is there a competitor in the market? Who would be Arup's big competitor?
It's probably a company, probably ACOM or Mott MacDonald, maybe, for in terms of having a large engineering firm that all do different things. They are the ones. There are also more niche, smaller acoustic firms. So there's a company called Charcoal Blue, who do work pretty much solely in theatres. They're a competitor for us. Another company called Vanguardia that only work on stadiums. They are a competitor for us as well.
Nice. So maybe if it's okay, you can just send me those links, and then when I post this out to the people who've been listening, those who are interested in physics and sound, they might be able to have a look at the other industry partners that they might be out there. Because we're thinking in today's world, when Rolls-Royce are putting notifications out that there's going to be job losses, it's difficult to find that maybe job that's going to last for life at one place. So it's really nice for us to be able to upskill our group with a bit more information. So unless there's any more questions for anybody there, we've got a couple more in there that's just come.
There was just one from Richard, which is quite a nice one. It was just really quick. And on your course at uni, Callum, did everyone have sort of a musical background or musical knowledge, or were there some people that were purely science focused or science based and had no musical background?
probably 3/4 of people had a music background,
Yeah.
and then 1/4 were straight up science. But that music background was really varied. You had some people who had a small interest and maybe played in just played at home, and then you had people who were going to do music right up until they found acoustics, like myself. But then there were 1/4 of people who looked at it more of a kind of electronics or strictly engineering side of it. So it was nice to have that balance in the group. It wasn't all failed musicians, as a lot of people like to say.
That's amazing. Well, thanks very much, Callum. I really appreciate your half an hour there. It's been super cool. And I hope you don't mind if I send that over to the people who've been listening today so they can go through and have a quick check of all the things that you've said. If you guys have got anything that you'd like to ask Callum, please send it through on a message and we'll ask Anna to pass those on to him and we'll get some responses soon. And that's the end of Vox number 3. So I'm going to sign off and I'll look forward to meeting you all in Vox 4 where we get to chat with the wonderful Tom Walsh. Thanks very much. Thanks, Callum. And
Thank you for listening. Yeah, thank you.
See you later, everybody.
See ya.
Yeah, see ya.